Good morning, brothers and sisters and friends. I'm really glad to be sharing God's Word with you again today. First of all, let's turn to the Bible. Our sister Michelle Zhang will be reading the passage for us.
Job 38, 4-15. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set? Or who laid its cornerstone? While the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy. Who shut up the sea behind doors when it burst forth from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment and wrapped it in thick darkness? When I fixed limits for it and set its doors and bars in place? When I said, this far you may come and no farther. Here's where your proud waves halt. Have you ever given orders to the morning, or shown the dawn its place, that it might take the earth by the edges and shake the wicked out of it? The earth takes shape like clay under a seal. Its features stand out like those of a garment. The wicked are denied their light, and their upraised arm is broken. Job 38, 31-33. Can you bind the beautiful Pleiades? Can you loose the cords of Orion? Can you bring forth the constellations in their seasons, or lead out the bear with its cubs? Do you know the laws of the heavens? Can you set up God's dominion over the earth?
So for today's message, I have chosen the title, What is the Book of Job telling us about the book of Genesis? For the passages that we were reading earlier, if you still remember the first verse, which is verse 4 that Michelle was reading, it says, where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? So where were you? Of course, we were not there at all. But then God kept on asking a lot of questions within that passage. And then near the end, God also asked, can you bring forth the constellation in their seasons? Why I've chosen this passage is because I feel that this passage can really help us to understand God's creation. And when I was reading this passage, basically from Job 38 to 40, I was really surprised that in these chapters, God was really telling us a lot more about His creation. So recently we have been studying, or during the Sunday service, Reverend Tam has been speaking about the Apostles' Creed. And of course, the main word will be I believe. I believe in God and I believe in Jesus Christ. And I don't know whether you believe God is the creator of heaven and earth. So I'm hoping that by studying these passages, it will help us to understand. And I also believe that understanding can also help us to believe. So, do you think anyone would be able to say, I was there? Because Job 38 verse 4, it asks, were you there when I laid the earth's foundation? Or maybe you will be thinking about Jesus Christ, because of course, truly, in the book of John, the Gospel of John, in the chapter 1, verse 1, it already says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. So probably that is the answer you think, or that is the answer you were going to give. But actually there is a passage in the Bible which clearly says, I was there when God set the heavens in place, when He marked out the horizon on the face of the deep, when He established the clouds above and fixed securely the fountains of the deep. when he gave the sea its boundary so the waters would not overstep his command, and when he marked out the foundations of the earth. So who do you think this is? Actually, to help you think, I'll give you more passages. We were reading from verse 27 to 29, but here if you look at verse 22, here it says, "The Lord brought me forth as the first of his work." So who do you think God created first? This passage is actually from Proverbs. And in Proverbs, it helps us to understand one thing. But what I want to show you is this brought forth. Actually, in some other translation, it was described as anointed. So God anointed this one as the first of his work. So who is this? This is wisdom. So probably now it already helps you to understand, because when you see God's creation, you probably will feel that it has been created full of wisdom. It is so amazing. So therefore, as God is telling us, God created everything by having wisdom first, and then with wisdom, he created everything else. So in Proverbs chapter 3, actually here it says, "By wisdom the Lord laid the earth's foundation. By understanding he sets the heavens in place. By his knowledge the deeps were divided, and the clouds let drop the dew." So with wisdom, God had created all these things, and I think you will agree if I say that's why it's so amazing. If you really look at God's creation, and we will look further today, you will really see that everything is so amazingly done. Something that if you don't pay attention, you won't realize. So let's go back to the beginning of the Bible, because in the beginning of the Bible, God told us how he had created heaven and earth. On day one, God created light, and he separated the light from the darkness. So here, God said, "Let there be light." Done these PowerPoint to help us to visualize. Of course, no one knows exactly how it is, but to help us to think what God actually created. As you know now, light is not only what we see or what helps us to see, but actually it is also the source of energy. So I think by the word in the Bible that says God created light, it actually is also trying to describe to us that God created energy. The energy that we are using and that we are feeling every day in this world. And then on the second day, God said, "Let there be a sky between the waters to separate water from water." So God created the sky to separate the clouds, the water in the sky, and the water in the ocean or sea. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place." So all the water will gather to one place as into a big drop, and then let dry ground appear. So from this big mass of water, dry ground appeared. And then God created vegetation. So at first it is all dry, and then God gave it vegetation. So therefore, if you already have seen pictures of other planets, you will see that they don't have vegetation, not like this world. And then God said, "Let there be light in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times, as seasons and special dates, and days and years. And let them be light in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights. Of course, we all know what these two great lights are. And then he also made the stars. So let's look at God's creation. So over 3,000 years ago, I think people can only understand this passage by the two great lights because they can only see sun from very far away, and we can only see the moon from very, very far away, and also stars from very, very far away. But nowadays it's different. So let's take advantage of this technology and understand God's creation a little bit more. So of course, this is the great light. One govern the day and one govern the night. And most likely in our mind and in a lot of people's mind, these are just stars in the sky. By taking advantage of the technology, we can see a better picture of the sun. First of all, it's very, very big, many times bigger than the largest planet, and of course many times bigger than this the world or this earth. And God say that this is to govern the day. Of course, we know that every day we will see the sun coming out. And in case you don't know, for the Chinese word, one day actually means one sun, because God created the sun in such a way that when we see the sun and then disappear, it is one day, and then next day when the sun comes up, it is another day. So I sometimes find the Chinese characters or Chinese language is also very amazing, because if you know the Chinese character, one day actually means one sun. When we see one sun, then it is one day. And the sun not only governs the day or give us light, actually, when we see the sun moving along the sky, we can also feel that time is passing by. So, of course, when we see the sun on the east, then it is in the morning, and when we see the sun in the west, then it is already the evening, and then the sun will disappear soon. So also, we all know that it is not the sun moving. Before, people may think that it is the sun moving, but now I think all of you would know that it is the moon not the moon, the earth rotating. That is why we see the sun in the morning, and the sun looks like it is going down in the evening, because actually we are turning away from the sun. And as in the Bible it says, let there be the light in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night. So I think this is also a nice diagram to show that the two lights are separating. When we are facing the sun, then it's the day, and when we are facing the moon, it is the night, when we are turning away from the sun. So, and God said, let there be light in the sky to mark sacred times and days and years. So not only the sun will help us to mark the time of a day, but also, as you know, the sun is also marking the year, because the earth is actually going around the sun, and when we go one big round, this would be a year. God also made the moon, which governs the night. And again, if you know the Chinese characters, actually when the word moon is exactly the same word as, to describe 1 month. So when you see a new moon coming out, then it is the beginning of the new month. And that's why you see that in the middle of the month, this is always the full moon. And this is actually quite important to help us to understand Chinese culture, but also particularly the Jewish culture. And there are actually a lot of amazing things, and you can appreciate God's wisdom in this. When the moon goes around the earth, the moon is rotating by itself also.
Look at the line, if you don't believe me. Vertical, horizontal, right? But it's rotating at a rate that matches So that only one side of the moon.
So only one side of the moon is facing the Earth. Actually, I don't know what's the significance of this, why God created it this way, so that from Earth we never see the dark side of the moon. But this is also something amazing that God made the moon rotate by itself, but it also orbit around the Earth, just like how the Earth orbit around the sun. And as I already mentioned, the moon is also very important for the Jewish culture, because actually their calendar is same as the Chinese calendar, that we use the moon to calculate 1 month. As you know, the calendar we use these days are called Gregorian calendar. It is using the sun to calculate the length of 1 month. So today, for example, is July 19th, the Sunday. And for the Chinese calendar, it is the 29th of the 5th month. So the passage says, God created the sun and the moon to help us to mark the sacred times. And in other translation, this is also translated as to serve as signs for festivals. So what kind of festival, special days does it help you to remember? Of course, for the sun, using the sun to calculate, we have every year the New Year, or Christmas, or birthday, or calendar day, or a lot more other festivals. But there are also certain ones using moon to calculate. For example, actually, you can also choose to also celebrate your birthday by using the Chinese calendar. This way you will be able to celebrate your birthday twice a year. So maybe you would want to do that. And then for Easter and Passover, these are all calculated using the moon and not using the sun. So for example, 2 Sundays ago, it was the 15th of the 5th month for the Chinese calendar, and that is the day for the full moon. And as I mentioned, that would be the middle of the month of the 5th month. So talking about full moon, most likely you already know that there's one important Chinese festival called the Mid-Autumn Festival, or the Mooncake Festival, or the Harvest Moon Festival. That would be on October 1st this year. But if we look at the Bible, and if you use word search to search for the word commemorate, as I did, I find five passages having this word, and the first 2 passages are related to the same incident, which is referring to commemorate this day, the day you came out of Egypt. So therefore, this is a very important day for the Jewish people. And this passage was also referring to the entire passage of Exodus chapter 12, where God told them to commemorate this day. On verse 14, here it says, "This is the day you are to commemorate. For the generations to come, you shall celebrate it as a festival to the Lord, a lasting ordinance." And on verse 6, you'll realize that it is the 14th of the month. And it is the Passover that they are celebrating. So for the Jewish calendar, it is similar but slightly different than the Chinese calendar. In most of their months, they have 29 days, and usually the 14th is their full moon day. So as we were reading earlier, God had picked the 14th as the Passover, and as you can see, God is also allowing them to have full moon, to have good moonlight, to go out to Egypt, because they actually go from Egypt, because they were actually leaving in the middle of the night. And for us Christians, we will already know that the Passover, the slaughter of the Passover lamb, is also related to the Easter. So every Easter, it is also happening around the middle of the month, and the month is calculated by using the moon. That's why we see that the Easter is not on the same day every year, not like Christmas, which is always December. And then God also made the stars. But again, with today's science, we can already understand a lot more about the stars. And of course, the stars closest to Earth are the planets. These stars belong to the same solar system that we belong to. And as you can see, we are the third planet away from the sun. This is the sequence, how they are arranged. And as you know, everything is orbiting around the sun. This is not easy, or this is nothing simple. This is really done with full of wisdom. If you compare the size of the Earth to all the other planets that God had created, of course we are so small, and we know that this Earth is already so big. But if we compare to all the other planets that God had created, the Earth is so tiny comparing to other planets that God had made. And as here you can see how big Jupiter is, which is the biggest among the planets, or among the stars closest to us. And as you see, like all the planets are orbiting around the sun on a plane. So like all these planets doesn't really move around randomly. I also find it very amazing. I don't know whether you have ever seen this toy Levitron. Maybe it's not a toy, but anyway, when I first saw it, actually a lot of years ago, maybe 20 years ago, I was amazed by this, and this is what it does. So this can levitate and stay in place, and basically stay in place for a long time, floating in the air. So if you think that this is amazing, you should now realize that how amazing God's creation is, that all these planets are floating in the air, but actually without air, floating in space, and will never fall off, because if we fall off away from the sun, just in a tiny bit, we will either be burned to death or freeze to death. So actually, I want to show you, like, when I was so amazed by this toy, that when I see that, I actually bought this long time ago. And with this, I was trying it. I was trying it, and I will show you a video, and I can show you that it is not easy at all. So that's why keeping everything going in its orbit for many years is not a simple thing. And now let's look at the stars more in detail. Do you know which star is closest to the Earth? Yeah, if you see in the summer sky, one star which is quite bright but look yellowish, more yellow than others, that would be Mars. So that is the planet closest to us. And this is another picture. So the amazing thing is Mars is also rotating by itself. And just for your information, it takes longer time for Mars to orbit around the sun than the Earth orbit around the sun. So these are all amazing things. And if you look at all these planets, you will find that they are so amazing because they are truly very beautiful. So starting from the planet closest to the sun, this is Mercury. I hope you will agree it is very beautiful. And then the next one, Venus, they all look different. So when we see God, we will be able to ask God why He created them this way. So the third one, Earth, and then the next one, Mars, and then Jupiter, and then Saturn. Of course, the ring is not a big ring, but just the light from all these satellites, stars, going around Saturn. And then Uranus, and then Neptune. So here, this is a video that someone had put up on the internet showing how everything is going around the sun. Of course, all these other planets are to proportion except the sun. So because the sun is really, really big, it is just trying to show us the center that we are all orbiting around. So I hope this gives you a better impression of how God had arranged all these stars around us. And in the same passage, not only God said it is to help us to mark the sacred times or the seasons, actually not the special days, but also seasons. So what is God talking about here? So in the sky, God made constellations to mark the seasons, because there are other translations which said God made constellations to mark the seasons within a year. And in Psalm 147, it also says, God determined the number of the stars and called them each by name. So have you ever imagined, or would you believe or understand that the stars were named by God? Probably God told Adam, you call this star Leo, and you call this constellation Aries, and so on and so on. But why? To help us, to give us horoscope? No. So God determined the number of the stars and called them each by name. So with this next picture, you will see that it is the same picture, but now the stars, the constellations names were marked. And in the passage that Michelle was reading for us, she also read Orion and Pleiades. And Pleiades is the group which is the brightest group of stars for the constellation of Taurus. And here you also see Gemini. So why did God create them and name them? And it says God named the constellations of the earth because He is marking the seasons. In Job, although we didn't read this passage, Job chapter 9 verse 9, here it says, He is the maker of the bear, which we will talk about later, and Orion, and Pleiades, and the constellations of the south. So what does the constellation do for us? God actually clearly made 12 constellations around the earth to tell us the time of the year. And that's why people will feel that, oh, I was born in August and therefore I belong to Cancer, or I was born in October and therefore I belong to Libra. So saying that is correct, but make sure that you do not start believing in the superstitious thoughts that people were trying to tell you using horoscope. So if you don't remember much from today's message, I want you to clearly remember that God did not make the constellations for horoscope. The constellations is only for us to know the time of the year, and therefore don't become superstitious and say that, oh, I belong to Leo and therefore, or next month I will be making a lot of money, or I will meet my girlfriend, boyfriend or something. So don't believe in those things. And what does it mean by, and some may say that, oh, but the horoscope is saying that because the stars were lined up in a certain way, that's why it affected my birth and also my destiny and so on. So I want you to understand that the stars actually are not moving. How the stars line up is only depending on where we are. Because sometimes if we are on this side and we look at that star, which is one of the stars in the constellation of Leo, you will see it arranged in this way and the background stars will be different. But when the Earth is on this side of the Sun, we're looking at the same star, we'll be seeing different alignments, and therefore we'll be seeing different stars. And these are slightly different images that I found on the internet. So depending on where we are, the stars will be lining up differently. And it's not that the stars are moving and lining up, but it is us moving. And of course, we already know through your science class that because the Earth is orbiting around the Sun, when we are in different positions, we have the 4 seasons. And that's how God had created the Sun and the stars and moon to mark these seasons for us. So going into the constellations, of course, as I was explaining, at different time we'll be seeing different constellations, because in this during different months, when we are facing the Sun, then it will be the daytime, but when we are not facing the Sun, the opposite side will be what we will be seeing. So that's why during different time of the year we will be seeing different constellations in the sky when we are turning away from the Sun. So this is the constellation for January, Capricorn, and then moving along it would be Aquarius, and then for March, and then is Aries, Taurus, and so on. And as I was saying, one of the brightest group of stars in Taurus is Pleiades. So we will be looking at that a little bit later. And then June, Gemini, July, Cancer, and Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. So not only the stars is helping us to know the time of the year, but God had arranged the star to give us direction. As you already know, the Polaris is the North Star, and this is where the North Pole is. So God had created this star to help us to know where is north at night. And of course, during the day, we know that the sun comes up from the east and goes down on the west, so we can tell the direction. But at night, God used the stars to help us to know directions. But how can we find the Polaris? that is when the other stars comes in. So we read these passages, and there were the name the Bear, Orion, and Pleiades. So let's first start with Pleiades. In this passage, God was asking, can you bind the chains of Pleiades? Or can you bind the beautiful Pleiades? Because this is always a group of stars, always together. And actually, the nickname for this group of stars is the Seven Sisters. And sometimes people see 7 stars, and sometimes people see 6 stars. So you may not know of this star, but I'm sure you all know of one logo of a brand name that uses this as the main logo. Guess what it is? You probably will be seeing it every day. In Japanese, Subaru is actually referring to Pleiades, and that's why the logo looks like that. So from now on, not whenever you see this brand, I hope that you'll be reminded of God's creation. And then God also mentioned Orion. Can you loosen Orion's belt? So that star, that constellation we were looking at, is referring to this constellation. And the easy way to distinguish this is you will see 3 bright stars together. That forms the belt of Orion. Yeah, so that is what God is referring to. Can you put them together? Can you arrange the star in such a way? And the Orion, since it is not a constellation of the 12 months, so what significance does it do? Actually, Orion can help us to locate the Polaris, which is the North Pole star. And let's first talk about the bear and its cup. Of course, if you know, the bear is referring to Ursa Major, which is the big bear. And you know, near the great bear, there's the smaller bear, the baby bear. And this is how they are arranged in the sky. And that's what it means when God said, can you bring out the bear and its cup? Can you arrange these 2 constellations this way? And what is the significance of the 2 bears? Because the tail of the baby bear is the North Pole, is the Polaris. So if you find the great bear, you can use the 2 stars at the front of the plow to locate the North Pole. But the Orion can also help you to find the North Pole, because if you join the middle of the belt with the tip, which is the head of the constellation, the straight line will help you find Polaris. So God did not only create the star to help us understand the time and season, but also to help us to find directions. And this is the picture of the true night, and this is how they all are arranged together at night. I just want to show this video that I found on the internet.
Ever since man first looked into the night sky, he knew that he was a part of something much, much bigger than himself. The vastness of the heavens was incomprehensible. The breadth of it all spoke of things eternal. And in looking at the heavens, man believed that perhaps he was really looking into the face of God. From Psalm 19, the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech, and night after night they display knowledge. So where are we in this place called the universe? Our moon is our nearest neighbor, 1/4 of a million miles away. Our sun is 93 million miles away from the Earth. The solar system is flying through space at 134 miles per second, spinning as it goes. It is a part of a vast collection of stars and star systems. Scientists estimate as many as 200 billion stars are a part of this collection called the Milky Way galaxy. Saturn, of the 9 planets in our solar system, is over 1 billion miles away. It is 1,000 times the size of our Earth. Of the 200 billion stars in our Milky Way galaxy, 6 billion of these stars have planetary systems like ours. Every star we can see in the night sky lies within the realm of our own galaxy. Voyager 1 is now the most distant human-made object in space. It was launched in 1977, traveling at a speed of 40,000 miles per hour. It is just now arriving at the edge of our solar system. The sun there is only 1/5,000th as bright as here on Earth, so it is extremely cold, and there's very little solar energy to provide electrical power. The fact that the spacecraft is still returning data is a remarkable surprise to our scientific community. Our solar system, containing the sun and the 9 orbiting planets, orbits the center of the Milky Way galaxy on just one of its outer spiraling arms. Our Milky Way galaxy, the home to our solar system, is just one of over 125
And remember,
billion galaxies.
all
that
these are
make
the
up
creation
the
of our
universe.
God.
Andromeda is the next closest galaxy. It is 10 million miles away from the Earth. Traveling at the speed of light, it would take 2 million years to reach Andromeda. Andromeda and the Milky Way form a small cluster of galaxies called the local group. Beyond the local group are even greater clusters of galaxies. Man has no knowledge whatever of what lies beyond this distance. From Hebrews chapter 11, by faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible.
So I hope that this the passages and the images help you to understand and believe that God is the creator. And how would believing God as the creator help us or relate to us? Actually, I would want to remind you that a few weeks ago, on May 17th, Pastor Fred was also explaining to us, and near the end, he was summarizing that if we believe God is the creator God gives us meaning and gives us wisdom and gives us value and help us to know that God values us. God had created us. So may God bless His words and help us to understand.